MLB writer, one of the best in the business. Point on ysnlive.com. Ron Potesta with you alongside Anthony Ardwig, and we are pleased to be joined by MLB writer, one of the best in the business as far as I'm concerned, John Perrotto, joining us on the YSN hotline. John, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Ron. How are you?
I'm good. More importantly, how are you feeling 1 month into quadruple bypass heart surgery?
Pretty good. I really can't complain. Everything's went well and feeling better every day, and on the road to recovery, and everything's good. I appreciate you asking.
Fantastic. John, Major League Baseball, anything but okay as we are trying to get the game back post pandemic. Players and the owners are bickering over money. What else is new? Is there light at the end of the tunnel in this? Do the owners and players realize how important these negotiations are in terms of Major League Baseball being the forefront of being the first major professional sports to come back?
I would like to think that both sides are able to grasp that. Whether they are or not, it's hard to tell. I do think that by negotiating in public the way they have been doing, both sides, and particularly the owners, every time the owners make a proposal, they float it to one of their MLB network employees the day before. I don't think that's helping matters. I don't think it's helping negotiations get any closer to finding a settlement, and I don't think it's helping the sport from a public relations standpoint. In a time when there's 35 million people unemployed, Ron, I don't think a lot of people are real interested in people squabbling over billions of dollars. And I think if I were baseball, I would put a news blackout on all the negotiations and quit leaking stuff and just sit down until you figure out an agreement or you don't figure out an agreement.
As far as I'm concerned, this is easy. I mean, you want social distancing. I understand that. I think that Major League Baseball could very well do it in a very easy manner. Sell no more than 10,000 tickets. Have your social distancing. Have the concession stands closed so people can bring in coolers of sandwiches and soda or a few beers if they want to. Have the cooler next to you to keep in mind of the social distancing. That way, the owners can sell 10,000 tickets at whatever amount of money, and you just pay the players the half a year salary. Everyone wins. You hope and pray that you don't have a pandemic again in the fall where the postseason can be played, because everyone knows the postseason is where the real money is. And for the owners and the players, I think this would be the perfect scenario. Could Major League Baseball get away with doing something like this, John?
I think it's a possibility. I don't know right away if states would let them open the ballparks up, even like you said, maybe 20%, 25% capacity for fans. But I think it certainly could happen sooner rather than later. And, I think, Ron, there's got to be some creative ways to get this done. And that's one of them. Or even if you have the closed ballparks, come up with an idea of somehow both sides realizing, hey, let's do what's good for the good of the game. And I think right now the players are very distrustful because they do realize if there's no baseball, regardless of who's really at fault in the negotiations, the players are the one that's going to take the blame, because you never hear people complain about the owners making too much money. It's always people talking about the players making too much money. So and the owners certainly understand that, and they put the players in a position where they know they're going to be the bad guy.
Yeah, well, you just brought that up, that the owners kind of put the details of their proposal out there. Do you think that was a strategic move to kind of give themselves leverage in this negotiation and kind of put the public eyes on the players?
Oh, I think there's no doubt in my mind that that's exactly what they're doing. They're putting the heat on the players because the public opinion is usually against the players, and I just don't think it's helping. It's not being constructive in this situation. I think for one time, maybe I'm Pollyannish here, I think you have to put the whole labor owner issue aside, and both sides, in good faith, and I'll reiterate that, good faith, need to come up with some kind of equitable solution. I have to believe there's one out there, and I think in this time of trouble, when you have almost 100,000 people have died, you've got over 30 million people out of work, people have no tolerance for this BS right now. They really, really don't. And I think baseball does not understand that. And what they should do, and I hate to say this as a reporter because it goes against everything that I'd want as somebody who covers baseball, I really think they should go into a news blackout. I really, truly do. I think people don't want to hear any more, and each time more stuff leaks out, the worse baseball's public perception becomes.
John, we had a caller last week that brought up a really interesting idea, assuming that fans would be allowed in the stadiums to have a barnyard, or not a barnstorming tour, where you would have most of your games played for the Pirates at PNC Park, but go to the nearer or the nearest affiliate. In the Pirates' case, it would be Altoona, and play a couple of games in Altoona in front of half of the crowd or a third of the crowd. And that way, the folks that have a ticket to that game would be able to see a Major League Baseball game played in Altoona. If you're the Indians, the closest team for the Indians would either be the Lake Erie Captains or the Akron Rubber Ducks, and have a couple of games played in the minor league facilities in front of half or a third of the stands. That way, you would have kind of a goodwill ambassador type of tour for Major League Baseball that I think would be a tremendous PR move for baseball.
That's a very interesting concept, Ron, and I think it would be good, especially in a year when it's becoming pretty apparent there's going to be no minor league baseball, and so many of the minor league franchises, I don't know if they're going to be able to survive the hit of not having a season. I mean, it's a different ball game than in the big leagues. They don't get very much television money, and almost all the revenue is predicated on ticket sales, concessions, parking, in-game sponsorships, things of that nature. And maybe you go to these ballparks and not only have the big leaguers come and play from a good PR standpoint, but maybe you give at least part of the proceeds to the minor league operators and help them keep afloat because, as you well know, Ron, you worked in the minor leagues. You know the margin, the profit margins are very slim in minor league baseball, and those operators could really, really use the help just to stay solvent and try to stay in business or come back next year when you would hope it'd be more of a normal baseball season again.
Well, and considering there's a couple of teams, 42 to be exact, that are on the chopping block at the end of this year, from a selfish standpoint, I'd love for the Pirates or the Indians to make a trek to Eastwood Field in Niles, where chances are you're not going to be seeing minor league baseball at the end of the 2020 season if Major League Baseball has their way. So why not have the Indians play a game or two or the Pirates play a game or two in a facility that's no longer going to be used after the 2020 season?
Oh, I agree. I think it would. I think it would be a good gesture. I think it would be good. It would be goodwill on the part of baseball. But as we're finding out these negotiations, public relations and goodwill is apparently not at the top of the list for Major League Baseball.
Me and Ron talked about it a little bit earlier before you came on. Some former players, Chipper Jones is one I saw, have come out kind of against the current players. What was your thoughts when you saw his statements and other statements of former players not really backing the current players?
I'm a little bit surprised. I think in a way it's a little hypocritical. When the strike of '94 came, I didn't hear Chipper Jones stand up and say, hey, we really shouldn't go on strike. And, I do think now that the way things are, that it is a little hypocritical. And again, I don't know if it's serving any good purpose either, except to try to make themselves look good. It's a little bit different for Chipper Jones now. He works for the team instead of the players' union. I just think everyone needs just to keep their mouths shut right now. And if reporters ask, just say, look, I'm not going to comment about the financial and economical situations because, again, it just serves no purpose. Like they always said in speech class, number one rule of public speaking, know your audience. And your audience right now are either unemployed, have lost loved ones to COVID, and if they are employed, they've had their hours reduced possibly, they've had their pay reduced possibly. So your audience doesn't want to hear about financial squabbles right now, and I just think it just is totally defeating the purpose to keep this up in public. And it just baffles me, it frustrates me that people in baseball don't understand that.
MLB writer John Perrotto joining us on the YSN hotline. John, it's no secret Major League Baseball lags far behind in terms of the age of the fan. The average baseball fan is now 57 years of age in Major League Baseball, and that is by far the oldest of all the four major sports. This is a sport that is very much in terms of trying to market themselves better, but they don't seem to take change very well. And it's no secret there are plenty of dark storms on the horizon. This is the current one. The one very close is after the 2020 season. Again, 42 minor league teams on the chopping block. And after the 2021 season, the contract between the players and the owners are up. And we will probably have a very long, very arduous negotiation battle. Could the combination of these three variables ultimately kill this game, John?
Yes, I think absolutely. And the sad part is it's like Nero fiddling while Rome burns. So that's Rob Manfred. I mean, all Rob Manfred does is run down Major League Baseball. Runs down, oh, the games are too long. The pace is too long. And he's right about it. But why do they always do this? If you have a product you're trying to sell, you don't run it down. If you're selling cornflakes, you don't say, well, they're stale and they're not very good and they don't taste very good and they're not nutritious for you. Of course you're not going to say that. They just run their own product down all the time, and then they wonder why people don't watch it. Well, if you're bad-mouthing your own game, then why would people want to watch the games, especially someone that might not be a baseball fan but say, hey, I'd like to watch a game or two and see what this is all about. And if all you're hearing is, well, the game needs fixed, this and that, you probably figure, well, the hell with it. It's not worth my time watching it if the people running it don't even like it.
John, let me ask you, if you were in the shoes of Rob Manfred, knowing that there's 30 owners that are essentially telling you what to do by and large, what do you do to change the marketing aspect and change the game without destroying the fabric of the game?
Well, the first thing I'd do is say, quit being adversarial with the players all the time. The players want to market the game. The players I talk to, and I talked to quite a few of them, they want the game to thrive, like any employee would want their business to thrive. And that is, there is so much mistrust, though, that the Players Association is hesitant to get into any kind of agreement with Major League Baseball on anything, including marketing, because they just feel that they'll end up getting the short end of the stick. And I can't blame them, because that's the owner's number one priority in life sometimes, seems like it is, to mess with the players. And I know the players make good money. They make great money. Well, the owners are making even a heck of a lot more money than the players. And there's just such a mistrust between labor and management that I don't know if you can ever bridge that gap, short of cleaning house and ownership and maybe even the Players Association.
We asked our callers this last week when we were talking about it, but since this is going to be an 82-game season, it's going to have if they play, it's going to be an 82-game season. It's going to have an asterisk on it no matter what. Do you think there are some things that the MLB can kind of test out to see if it works this year, since it's kind of a crazy season anyway?
Yeah, I think they are. Yeah, I think they could, and I think they are. I think you're going to see the universal DH in both leagues. That seems like that's pretty well been agreed upon, even though it hasn't been announced publicly. They're going to a 14-team playoff. I don't know as a traditionalist if I like almost half the league being in the playoffs, but if you're ever going to try something to experiment, this is the year to do it. Like you say, there's the strange season anyway with 82 games. So yeah, I think perfectly it's a good time to experiment because, like you said, there's going to be that asterisk next to the season, if not physically in the record book, certainly mentally in the mind of the fans. So why not? Maybe you come up with some good ideas, maybe some things that work moving forward and make the game better.
John, before we let you go, obviously, if Major League Baseball is not played, you're going to lose upwards of $4 billion, and that is a tremendous amount of money. Even though it probably doesn't make any sense to expand, the fact that you would be getting close to $4 billion between the two teams, getting the two teams into Major League Baseball, is expansion a lot closer to the game now by two teams than it ever was because of the financial hardship that Major League Baseball could have if it does not have a 2020 season?
Well, that's a great point, Ron. And if you look back at the expansion years, one of two things have driven expansion. Either one, lawsuits from cities that lost teams like Seattle, so they had to put another team into Seattle, or two, it's owners have a shortfall of cash and they need an influx of cash. And what better way to do that than have two expansion teams pay about $1 billion total in franchise fees just to be able to get expansion teams. And, you know, it makes a lot of sense on a lot of levels. You have an odd number of teams in both leagues. That would even it out to 16. I think there's some markets there, Portland, Charlotte, you know, some other places that would be potential major league markets. So, yeah, I mean, if they're going to do it, this would be the time to do it, both by historical precedent and just from a common sense standpoint.
Well, let's not forget Montreal, because if we're going to expand by two more teams, Montreal has to be one of those teams.
And I think they will be. I totally forgot to mention them. But, yeah I think if they can get a stadium built, and it looks like they can, I think you'll definitely see a team back in Montreal.
John, always a pleasure. I'm glad that you are doing much, much better health-wise, and I look forward to seeing you when all of this gets taken care of and we're back to covering baseball again.
Well, me too. I look forward to it, Ron. And thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You got it. John Perrotto, he is an MLB writer, and he's one of the best at what he does. He is a fantastic, fantastic writer. Absolutely love his work. And he brought up some interesting points. Man, if you're a fan of this game, you certainly hope and pray that the players and owners back away, get in their respective corners, have this news blackout, and just let cooler heads prevail.